applaud you and the council for doing that, because having been on the council and been on the budget committee, I have been advocating that for almost 7 years, that they should become self-sustaining. And I always said I never would have a problem.
I just got from your home number. 1 second, apparently I just got a call actually from Russ, but it wasn't him because he was right here. Apparently we have no sound.
Okay. Just pause.
Is that my wife calling in?
It must be. I do apologize, it's just this was buzzing.
We'll recess for a minute.
Yeah, we're gonna recess for a minute. What am I dialing?
I just got the text.
So Steve, what portion did you not want the public to hear?
Chris, we have no volume apparently. Okay.
This is the technology fund piece that we need to.
You need more money for technology?
No, I know that
Okay.
there's a little.
Nope, that's okay as long as but we're okay now? All right, thank you.
The budget ran out for sound.
Yeah.
All right, we're okay now.
Okay.
It went out without sound. We may not have sound on the recording as well for that first half hour.
Do we
but-
need the lights, yes or no, off or on?
I just thought you.
No, I can.
I'm fine with the
Okay.
lights on.
Okay.
I'm fine with that.
Can you
And I'm
explain,
going to shut my phone off. so-
can you go over the revolving fund again? Because as,
Okay.
I know last year you talked about doing things and the council has to try to reduce the net expense impact. Yet from the numbers that I saw, it looks like it's going the other way.
No, it's not.
From the actuals.
No, it's, what it is that before, and this was the problem, the recreation was set up with what we call the special fund. And the way we accounted for it was that anything that our revenues didn't offset in the special fund, we took through taxation, which isn't the best municipal accounting way to do it. Probably you shouldn't do it that way. We should have a recreation revolving fund. What we're doing is we're saying that X amount is what is funded through funded through taxes. And once we get into recreation, we'll show that more. Programming, like the summer programs, the trips, those kind of things, are now funded through the recreation revolving fund, which are offset by revenues that they collect. So those are the items that do not hit the tax rate. But you're also, I mean, it hits the tax rate by saying that you don't have those revenues to offset it like we did before, but it generates its own money, and any fund balance stays in that recreation revolving fund. So they can use it, say if they have an event that's really successful and has a surplus of 10,000, and you have one that isn't so successful and has a deficit of a few thousand, you can offset it that way.
So effectively, we're saying that the overhead that we have in creating the rec programs and managing the process is a tax expense, but the
Right.
actual programs going forward should always be self-funded.
Correct. Correct. So we're not having tax dollars subsidize programming.
And it has been stated that if they do not sustain themselves,
Yep.
they're probably going to be heading out.
Correct. If a program is not successful, they need to cut it because it's not making enough revenue to continue on.
Okay, but you're also making a decision up front that even if they had successful programs that continued to succeed, that money wouldn't, none of that money would end up going to reduce the general management.
If the rec department was so successful and all monies that it collected could offset the programming, absolutely.
That'd be ideal.
I would
Or the
move,
the
salaries
overhead, you
over.
mean.
It's
Yeah.
right. There are no communities that do that.
Okay,
I
but
mean,
so
Dover,
from,
Portsmouth, those large communities that have huge programming, the overhead is just there.
so from 2015 on, they're self-funding on programs?
Yep.
Okay,
Absolutely.
thank you.
And did you say all programs?
Except seniors. Seniors, they're still in the operating budget, just there's no revenue.
The sunrise, sunset.
Right.
And those programs don't have a charge for,
There's not enough to offset.
there's no
what they
revenue
have.
that comes
No.
in.
I don't believe there is. I think if there is, it's tiny, so it doesn't offset the actual expenses.
That's pretty small anyway, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like $15,000
Yeah.
a year or
And
something.
that's mainly for the coordinator and her help there. So it's not much more than that in the cost for the building. That's it.
Well, the cost of the building is not that high, is it?
No, it's not any longer. We had to pick it up
As of this year?
as of middle of last year. So, library is at $303,736, or an increase of about $2,805, or 0.9%. Solid waste is decreasing, very, ever so slightly, $600, $14. I've already gone over the recreation revolving fund. The two enterprise funds, water is decreasing by $19,535, and sewer is decreasing $6,123, which I'll be getting into that in more detail. And this is just a 3-year comparison as a bar graph. The prior is 2013. This is the current one, 9.147. That was the department head proposed. My proposed, so this is the 9.115 and 912, which was adopted by the council last week. Yes.
And again, that is a budget-to-budget comparison, not actual
Correct.
budget.
Your budgets do have actuals in there, but we do not do that. Yeah.
From a presentation purpose, and I don't know what anybody else on the budget committee, it helps me when I go through the numbers to do what you just did on the prior slide.
Yep.
Which is to say, here's the general fund balance that runs all the operations of the town. Let's look at that number,
Yep.
because that's not 9 million, that's only 5 or 6 million.
Right, right.
Let's look at water, and that affects the tax rate.
Yeah, that's this one.
Right,
Yeah.
okay. Water and sewer has no tax rate impact, nor no revenue or expense impact, because they're self-funding.
Right.
They charge out, they have their own reserves. So we really, I'd love to take them out from as a separate thing and just say, that doesn't do anything to the tax rate, they have their own funds, they don't use town funds. And then the third piece of these special funds, which are solid waste, library, and recreation, which have some self-funding aspects, and just to be able to look at those 3 chunks, because I think when you do, it gives you a better sense. What we're doing when we affect tax rate is we have no impact on water and sewer, other than to comment on it, but it has nothing to do with the tax rate.
Right. But it does have impact on the rates themselves for those who are involved.
Right.
Well, yes, for the
Yeah.
ratepayers, but for what we're doing here, it is
But
important
as
to
a budget
remember-
committee, we don't set those rates, we
No.
don't review those rates. Okay.
And it's in here because
It's
it's got to be
set
part of the
as part
operating
of it,
budget,
right.
but there's offsetting revenues, so it's kind of a gazinta gazada, and
Yeah.
then there really
Well, just
usually
have to
isn't much
multiply
more
everything by
discussion.
50%
Yeah,
to say
so
what.
the number you're saying right there is the general fund is 70% of the budget, at about 6.4 million. The special and the revolving funds is at 10%, or $944,519, and the water and sewer is at 20%, or about 1.77 million. Overall, increases. There were slight increases in employee salaries. The merit pool was distributed, that we put in there. About 37,000 of that 50,000 was distributed. That covers salaries and associated benefits increases such as retirement and FICA, Medicare, those type of items. So that was, in a lot of departments, you're going to see that. Human Resources, FICA had a $55,526 increase. There was an accounting issue that the finance director will discuss when he gets to that point. Health, we did see a 9.8% increase in our rates this year, so we're seeing a $67,859 increase there. And liability, our PLT, our property and liability coverage is going up to $7,493. That's actually much lower than we were expecting. We are going out to bid to secure a new liability and workers' comp and unemployment insurance carrier. So we're doing that this year.
Again, these increases are budget versus budget, not budget
Correct.
versus actual.
Correct.
Okay.
Legal is up $7,500. That's our contracted. We went to I'm trying to think what I was going to say. We're now, we have them on retainer, so we had to. That's our normal increase. So we no longer have an hourly fee for our new law firm. Planning is requesting a $10,000 increase because we need to update the master plan. It's been a number of years that we need to do that. IT, $5,109 for equipment. Public Works Administration, this is a operational change on how we do it. The director's salary is now covered 100% in the budget. So you're seeing, in the general fund budget, so you're seeing an increase of $18,229. Previously, a portion of his salary was in the water and sewer department. He no longer oversees water and sewer, so we had to put all those funds back into the operating budget. For example, my salary, a portion of that is in water and sewer, because I oversee the water and sewer director. So we can charge that off. It wasn't accurate that he was overseeing it, so we changed that to.
When did that change?
This year. This is the first year.
Okay.
So.
Can you go back to legal? Who is our legal team now?
Donahue, Tucker, Jandela of Exeter.
Awesome.
So that's our new town attorneys. Roads. We're seeing an increase. We're requesting $28,000 for engineering for stormwater management. This is for what we refer to as the MS4s. The state is requiring us to now manage all of our runoff from all the culverts and drainage in the town, and we need to get a plan in place to start doing that. This is to start doing that work, and it's mandatory, and if not, we'll be starting to see fines for that. It's hitting all the communities, basically east of 93 and west of the ocean. Those on the coast have already had it. Now it's coming in between, and it's a large cost for a lot of people. Salt, $5,000 increase. Fire, $52,402. Where's that coming from? Well, $16,000 is from ambulance billing. In the past, Exeter ALS would do our billing for us, take the money, and take a portion of the fee, and that would be their cost, their charge. They're not doing that anymore. They send us a check for everything that we receive for billing, and we have to return it to them. And so we have to budget the $16,000 fee that we used to not even see, but now we have to budget it. There is an offsetting revenue for that $16,000. On-call stipends. We're having a difficult time having firefighters on weekends, volunteers. Nice summer weekends. Nobody wants to sit around in case a fire happens. They're going to be trying a new program that have stipends so we make sure we have coverage on the weekends. And radios, we're increasing that by $5,000 to try to get us replacing more radios at a faster rate. Capital reserve contributions, we're seeing an increase of $16,857. Technology is $10,000. We haven't contributed that for a number of years. Police, $2,744. We're switching vehicles. It's no longer the Crown Vics are no longer police vehicles, and they're going to I can't remember the name. It's a Ford, not quite an SUV, not quite a car. You see a lot of communities have them now, and there's a little extra cost with those, but they're much better than the smaller cars that some communities have been using. Recreation facilities, that's to contribute $3,000 to their capital reserve fund for playgrounds and other facilities like that. Stormwater management, that is the other side of the $28,000 up here. This is for the engineering. This is because when we have to address it, it's going to be a significant cost. We want to start putting money aside for that now. Solid waste, we're seeing a $40,000. Oops, sorry, Drew.
When do we expect to have this?
Probably about
implemented?
5 years.
Okay, thank you.
Household hazardous waste day is not household hazardous waste day. Household waste day, spring cleanup is what it's commonly referred to. We're adding $40,000 back in the budget for that. I could tell you, it's the number one thing I've heard is why don't we have that anymore? It was cut a number of years ago. We're trying to refund it so we can do that again. We're going to be changing the programming because it used to cost about $45,000. We're going to see how we can do it more efficiently, but we still want to put enough money in there so at least we can continue the program.
This is solid waste?
This is under solid waste budget, but it's not paid for by the bags.
Well, I understand.
This is like curbside, this is like you have debris or some kind of stuff that you can't bring to the transfer station because you just can't lift it. We come by and pick it up once a year, spring cleanup.
Right, and I haven't seen the number, but if solid waste expense is about 425,000, something like that, how much revenue? There used to be a gap that it was costing us like 200 grand a year.
Yeah.
That the town was.
There is. We still have to subsidize solid waste. I mean, it's not a. We don't make.
Okay.
We don't
We
make
are
it-
subsidizing solid waste.
Yes, yes. We don't make everything from the bags. Correct. Because
That's basically because the blue recyclables, a lot of people that put that out there, but don't put the bags on.
Right, in the recyclables right now, the market isn't there as it used to. That's a commodity. I don't know if everybody realizes that. It's the same thing. We make money off aluminum, paper, stuff like that. That market's not there right now either, because you use that to build new things, but the economy softens, nobody's building anything. Recycling isn't right there.
Can I then ask a question, only because I know there's a lot of people who do private contracting for, which effectively as taxpayers, they're paying for other people's
Yep.
solid waste removal. If the issue is recycling and everybody's doing that, and that's half the budget or something like that, that would be a much better explanation to be able to say, we recycle for everybody, and that costs 200,000. And by the way, the solid waste is 200,000 in revenue
Right.
and $200,000 in costs, so we are in effect charging the solid waste users. At least
Yep, no,
that's-
I understand. Yeah, reporting will do that.
If you can think about,
Yep. Decreases. Yeah, oops, sorry,
Question.
Larry.
Salt, do you happen to know who the vendor is on that?
Grand State Minerals.
Thank you.
Isn't that a captive audience that they have?
Yeah, we use Grand State Minerals as our main one. We have another one that we
There's
go
two.
to as well. The reasoning is, a few years ago, I don't know if there was a salt shortage. And a lot of communities only use one vendor. Well, one vendor ran out, the other vendor said, I only have enough to give to my communities. So a lot of communities were left scrambling, trying to get salt, even though there was, I remember literally, there were ships off the coast with salt and they couldn't get in because of different weather issues. But there was a salt shortage one year. So we try to keep everybody happy a little bit, but it's mainly that. Decreases. Personnel changes in finance, we're saving about $8,260. Audit fees are going down at $6,250. We do have a new auditing firm, Plodzik and Sanderson. So we did, by charter, we have to switch every so often. Town clerk salaries, we're seeing a reduction of $7,806. That's through just changes in staffing. And codification, a reduction of $11,300. Retirement, we're seeing a reduction of $36,903. That is where you had those employees who are making less salaries. It impacts there. Workers' comp, with our new, for some reason, when we switched to a fiscal year many, many years ago, we didn't switch all of our insurance coverages to a fiscal year. Workers' comp was on a calendar year. It makes no sense. We should have everything up at the same time. So what we're doing is, when you look at the budget, there is a huge decrease in the workers' comp. We are working to do an 18-month budget. So this year's will be part of the 18-month, and then you'll have another 6, and it'll get us through to, then we can start up again in the following fiscal year. So you're seeing a $61,934 decrease there. I can tell you that if we didn't switch companies, you would have seen the opposite. You'd have seen a large increase. We are seeing an increase in workers' comp. We had a number of claims in this past year. I can't get into them a lot because of personnel issues, but we are looking at ways to solve that as well. We have a very active joint loss management committee who's doing training, and they go around, checking all the safety items, doing training from everything from using the defibrillators to right way to fall, how to handle ice. We're trying to do what we can to make sure that our employees are not going to get hurt.
is that a one-time thing, though?
It is. That is going to be a one-time thing.
I'm just trying to think, is it going to go up 61
It's going to go
next
up,
year?
not in next year's budget, we will have an increase, yes. So it is that is an infamous one-time savings. Assessing, 6,000, and look, and in the business world, you would be able to budget for that. You'd say, well, I can carry over money from the next year. We have to budget to what we're going to expend somewhat, so we know that we're not going to spend that much, so we have to make that cut, but we know it's going to go back out.
Okay.
Assessing, we're seeing savings because we contracted out our assessing. We used to have a assessor on staff part-time. We now contract with Municipal Resources, Inc., so a lot of the costs of overhead that are now goes through their company versus us. Debt service. You're going to see a reduction of $140,250. That's because we wiped out that for some
encumbered
reason,
thing.
that DPW thing where we just kept paying back from,
Paying ourselves
we
back.
kept paying
is-
ourselves back.
We never took a
So,
loan, yeah.
That's there. Public Works maintenance of vehicles, we're reducing by $15,050. We just think that that's probably more accurate on fixing, what we're gonna be paying for fixing. Public Works Director is nervous, but we're gonna work with what we have. Landfill closure testing, but that we looked at and we reduced it to 20,000 because of looking at actuals. And here is where you find the water. There was a number of decreases, but this is where you find those numbers that we had to put back in the general fund.
Quick question. I never heard landfill closure testing.
Yep.
Is that an annual expense?
Yep. We have a Superfund site on the western part of town, southwestern part of town. That's a closed landfill. I don't remember the actual name of it. I apologize to you.
It's the dump site.
Right.
The old dump?
The old dump that every town has it, but we closed it and capped it.
See,
What is
it's,
that,
it's
Liz?
fenced in. When you go into the town landfill now, there's a fence. Behind the fence, behind the trail of the
Like
hills
we
and
have to
everything.
do government testing
Oh, yeah.
every year?
Every year.
On
It's-
the closed to
Yep.
make sure there's
But
no
still off
leakage
that
or
Yep,
anything?
exactly.
Yeah,
Well,
same
I'm-
dump.
Yeah.
I'm very aware of the issue, but
So-
okay. So that's it. But we're reducing the annual expense.
We are.
But because we closed the landfill, we now have to test it each year in
Yep.
perpetuity.
Yep.
To make sure it doesn't leak. One other quick question on this.
Sure.
The increased expense of about $70,000 or $80,000 because of the water runoff? That
Yes.
This is the first year.
This is the first year we started budgeting
Is
for it.
this something we need to worry about, that it's going to continue to increase and the 80,000 this year is just a drop in the bucket?
That's why we're trying to put that money in the capital reserve fund, so when we do have the big hit, we have something to offset that. Because we're gonna have to start implementing MS4 plans.
So, other than that, everything else is semi-business as usual, but
Right.
that's the
There's
one.
no new programming that we have for,
That's the one that should,
yeah.
yeah.
Those are the kind
concerns.
of things that, like in the spring, where we kind of have to talk about what are those things in the future that are coming our way, so we can
Yeah.
kind of.
Right, and that's what's.
Question.
Sorry, Dana was first, and then.
I want to go back to the landfill closure
Yep.
of 20,000. That's a decrease.
The budget already will currently have 30,000 versus 50.
Oh, okay, that's what,
Yep.
okay, so it's at 30,000.
Yep. And these are decreases that we made as a group, as the staff did before presenting the budget to the council. And then,
Hold on.
Mr. Pickering
sorry.
had a-
The landfill closure testing, is another question on that. We just got done talking about in perpetuity. I mean, is that the case, or was there a date set? Or if the tests come back more favorable each year, do we have to do this
you
each and
still
every
have to do
year?
testing, you just don't have to do as much testing. And that's what we're starting to see it reduce.
Yeah.
You're gonna see
Look
it-
at it as a monitoring well.
Yeah.
You have to monitor
That's
whatever
exactly
it
what it
is.
is.
Yeah,
They're monitoring wells out there.
And it used to be
Unfortunately-
required quarterly, and
Yeah.
now they're probably semi-annual.
Yeah.
It's environmental requirements. Once you close something, you have to monitor it forever.
How is the
Forever
price
is a
set
long
for that?
time.
Is that a contract? Is that a
It's a
bid
contract.
thing?
It's a contract,
Did
but
it go
you,
out to bid? Excuse me.
we could, at this point in time, you don't wanna do that too much in the middle of the project.
No, understood,
Yeah.
but I mean, that would be something that would
Absolutely,
fall
we could look
into
at.
bidding
We could pull
contract
the
or
documents out and see what-
RFP
Yeah.
or whatever, okay.
Is it mandated by EPA or by?
EPA, DES,
Yeah,
Throw
everybody.
every
You
element.
basically don't want the stuff leaking into your water supply.
Right.
That's why you're.
Dave, did you
Right.
have a question?
No, I think, as we're talking, and he keeps bringing up some of these things that we're planning for worst case, we're planning for this in the future. I think those are some things that we talked about at the last meeting, where I think in the spring, we have to have, as a community, what is in front of us for the next 5 years, so that we can start thinking about it.
absolutely. So the council did review my proposed budget and made some changes. So these are further reductions. In my line, they reduced the printing and publishing by $1,000. Finance, they reduced the finance director's salary by $10,000. Advertising by $2,000. Human resources, that was the part of the workers' comp situation that we discussed. Unemployment is, because we are seeing some favorable numbers there. The finance director originally went by the state's figure of how they determine unemployment, because we thought it would be more accurate. That actually is it was a reduction of $22,901, because we went with what the insurance company, their figures are. So we're seeing a significant reduction from my original budget there. Again, we had an additional reduction of $2,950 in assessing from various. Planning, $2,000, staff and board development and subscriptions. IT, $1,000 from training, $600 in communication services. Just for the record, I was asked to provide where the town council cut the budget, so this is this list. So this is-
Absolutely.
Right, this is above.
That's good.
Another Channel 13 equipment for $1,000.
That's why we didn't have sound today.
No, I'm not saying that. Bridges, for some reason, there's a $500 line item for signs and bridges. We're getting rid of it. It doesn't make sense. We'll just roll it into other operational expenses, $500. There is some of the public works vehicle maintenance there. We did believe that we could get down to much less. The reval and capital reserve. I am happy to say, when I originally thought we were going to need about 80 to 100,000 to conduct our revaluation this coming year. Yes, we're doing a statistical update revaluation this coming year. They came in much, much lower. The assessors were also very surprised. So much so that we were looking at doing $40,000 over 2 years. We only need an additional 10. And we'll have enough to do that. So we're seeing those bid prices came in very low. And it's happening to other communities right now too. Again, those are some more of the savings. And we already went over landfill closure. And water, electricity, and engineering, that's what their savings there. So the council
totals?
did, what's
I
sorry?
don't see a total here, Steve.
I'm sorry, I don't have the total on the spreadsheet, but I will get those to you.
Okay.
And some of these were on the other sheet, right? They're repetitive.
Yeah, some of them were repetitive, so I've got to make sure that we do that, and I'll get that.
Going back to the finance director, the cut of 10,000.
Yep.
What's the salary going to be at that point?
We budgeted 70. We're still we're still working on that, but there'll be additional savings probably through other benefits that will be associated as well. So,
Do we have a new finance?
no, Matt is still our interim one,
Okay.
and we're working on that as we speak.
Okay.
Ask a question?
Yes.
Can we go back to solid waste on the general supplies? You're decreasing about $5,000.
Yep.
Is that lack of people buying bags?
No, that's just stuff that we need for at the transfer station, and we just don't need it. I can't remember the piece of equipment that we're going to buy. When the public works director's here, he'll explain that more, but he had no issue.
Are the bag numbers in that
Yes.
number?
Yeah, yeah. And again, once we get into the details, the public works director will have those numbers. I don't have them right in front of me.
That's fine.
So, revenue budget. Overall, we are, as of right now, we're saying our revenues are going to come in slightly lower. We're very cautious right now at the beginning when it comes to revenues. So we're saying that revenues overall are going to come in at $4,869,586. There is the 2.6 is going to be general fund revenues. So that's the building permits, the motor vehicle registrations, that all revenues, does not include taxation when I say revenues. Because the way we determine the tax rate is you take the budget minus the revenues minus two other columns, and then you get the tax rate. And we'll go through that in 1 second. And then there's the special funds at $435,622. So that's your solid waste and the recreation revolving. And the 1.77 is the wastewater.
Again here, Russ, if I can expand upon your point, I think that is where Russ and probably I am both saying that, yeah, you're being cautious on here, and I understand why you would want to do that, but based on historical,
Yep.
the previous slide that we did as far as how the general fund goes up and down and whatever, and balancing that there.
And this is in the purview of the budget committee. If the budget committee wants to increase the revenues,
Yeah.
you have every right to.
Yep.
I just try to be cautious in case I have
No,
to.
that's
Yeah.
understood.
Because
I-
being October, if it's not there, I have to figure out.
But if historically we're coming up
Yep.
with $500,000, to
Yep,
Russ's
absolutely.
point,
Absolutely.
maybe we don't need to be quite as,
Yep.
as cautious
Well,
and balancing a
and-
little
And
bit.
I think we can get into more of that later.
Yeah,
Yeah, we're
no,
not
absolutely.
tonight.
Yeah.
As far as an impact thing, though, and I just want to make sure I'm understanding it correctly, if we end up, whether it's increasing revenue or reducing expense further,
Yep.
that net change, if that's what we recommend and it's approved, effectively would reduce the net expense to the community.
The amount
Which
needed to
would
be
then
raised
also-
Through taxation.
Right, and let's say it's a $200,000 savings. that would end up reducing our need to use 200,000 of the excess balance in the fund balance.
No, because but fund balance is what we are budgeting using 404,000. If you increase revenue somewhere else and you want to reduce the tax rate with that, you can't reduce that 404.
But
I think I see what you're saying, but I just want to make sure it's clear that if you increase motor vehicle registrations by 100,000, you're not necessarily going to decrease the fund balance usage that we budgeted, because that's one of the things we want to keep level. You would use that in October, because we're on the cycle right now that in October that they get together and say, well, we're going to use X amount from fund balance. Well, say if we thought we're going to have more motor vehicle registration, yes, you could say, look, you can up the motor vehicle registration and not use as much.
But I think, Russ, if what you're saying that is what that would do, and I think where Russ is getting is that whether it's a decrease in expenditures or an increase in revenues, the amount needed to be raised from
Is not as high.
taxation would ostensibly go
Yep,
down.
Exactly.
Okay, and that's the two-pronged approach
Yeah,
that we
and this
can
is
take
the
here.
huge, my warning.
I have questions for
sorry.
Mr. Glennon
Yeah,
over here,
I want to go
please.
back to your statement you just said that the budget committee can increase the revenues.
It's your
We
budget.
we can make a revenue
My question would
recommendation,
be,
yes.
How would we do that, increase revenues?
Every budget committee I ever been on, they didn't realize that this is part of their budgeting
Yeah.
process. Revenues is part of the budget. You have
Oh, I know it's
oversight of
part the
revenues.
budget, but-
You have oversight of revenues. When you adopt the budget, revenues are included.
Just never was spoken about before as a
And
budget.
I think last year when I brought up the revenue
No, I know.
budget,
We both agree.
yeah.
Okay.
So-
That's why we have all of this, is information that we have this year, I think is, and thank you, a little clearer and a little out there so that we can see
Yeah.
both pieces
This
of
was
the pie
actually
and
last
make a
year's too. We did have
recommendation.
all the revenues in there
Yeah,
last year.
but
So
So-
are we, going back to my question, are we saying like your scenario you just said, if registration, can we say we want to increase the the cost of registering the car?
No,
No.
we can, in the budget,
Yeah.
if Steve has, if the town administrator and the finance committee
Actually,
through-
this is at the point, it's the council.
and the council has put forth that, let's say, motor vehicle registrations, they are estimating based on this are gonna come in at, pick a number, 100,000. But if historically, to then Russ's point, that if historically we've been able to build the general fund by, say, 500,000, whatever, we can say, no, I think your estimate of $100,000 is a little bit low based on historical averages. We think we could estimate 125,000 in motor vehicle registrations, or,
So we're not actually increasing revenues by
no,
increasing.
No.
the same as we are not increasing expenditures
By
per se.
increasing
It's budget only. But we can add to revenues in addition to cutting from expenses to say, look, we've been a little too cautious in the past. So that means that we might then, if I understand this correctly, we might then say to the town council and the town administrator, okay, you know what, we're going to increase the anticipated revenues for motor vehicle registrations to 125. They might come in at 120,
So
but
we're
again, the
basing it
same
all
in the
on-
revenue budget, we might come over in ambulance, but under in motor vehicle registrations. As long as that bottom line of revenues, he's got some play in that, the same as he
So
does in
We're only
expenditures.
increasing, if we do increase that revenue
The-
side, is through historical
The
information.
budget line item tied to that revenue.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay.
This is my big warning. Next slide is uses estimate only and
This
uses
is where you
data
go
as
down
we have up
slippery
today.
slopes there, son. All right.
Okay, town council budget, as proposed. This is where we get in the tax rate setting and how we do it. You take the 9.115912 of the gross appropriation. You back out the revenues, which is $4,869,586. We haven't got shared revenues in years from the state, but we still report that so we can rub it in the state, because they still owe us. Add overlay. That's 100,000. What is overlay? Overlay is money that we need to raise for such things as abatements that we don't know that's out there, but we need to have some extra money there. War service credits. Those are the monies at veterans exemptions, those kind of items that we budget for, because we just don't know exactly what it is, but we estimate 175,000. So we add those two numbers in. So the net town appropriation is $4,521,326. You take the assessed value of the town, which is $744,537,983. You divide that number by the 4.5 million by the 744,000. You multiply it by 1,000 because we do it per $1,000 per assessed valuation, and the tax rate is $6.07 as estimated as of today, or the same as it was this year, and the same as it was the year before. So we're looking at a level tax rate before the last 2 years. Yes.
Yeah, just I know we're gonna have another session or two with you. This is especially one of the places where I'd love to see what you call the general fund, a sheet like this for general fund, a sheet like this for the special revenue.
But what it is, okay,
Well, because in here.
but this isn't how it's worked. That's not how it, I don't think it, I think I know what you're saying. What you're saying is the 4 million is revenues, is special revenues. So like water and sewer, everything is in that 4.8 million.
Mhm.
So this is the whole thing, so you gotta back those two out.
Right, and all I'm saying is that if you look at it, again, like I do, if you look at the general fund only, which is what we're really talking about for the tax rate, this is where the tax rate of 607 is not because we're spending 9 million and getting 4 million in revenue.
No, it's,
It's because we're spending 6 million and we're getting 2 million in revenue.
Right.
Because water and sewer has nothing to do with this,
right,
and the special,
right, and that's exactly
revenue
what you said. The
side.
6 million that I said previously is offset, it gets you down to the 4.
6.3 ties to
Right.
the 607 exactly. In here, it's because there's.
right, and I just
gotta
like to
back it
show
up.
it that
Goes
way
into
so
with a
people
matching
know there's
Gazetta.
3 moving
I
parts.
understand,
Right.
I understand, this is,
We'll-
but
we'll
yeah,
know
this is,
that.
I know that's the way
But you have to do
DRA
it.
has to
Yeah.
have the form, yeah.
so,
Any other
wait, I got one more.
questions on that piece?
Nope.
Okay.
Average home value in town is 250,000. Current town portion is $1,517.50. It'll be the same. So that is what the annual tax, and that's just for the town. One thing, I don't know if anybody saw on the town clerk, tax collector's page, there is what I have called the town tax white paper. You can go in and add the value of your home, and it will show you exactly what you're paying for each department in your bill. So like, for example, you put $250,000 in, you can see that you pay $30 a year for the town administrative department, or that kind of situation. So you can actually see it.
How much do we own you?
Yeah. So I can give refunds if needed.
I probably
My money's
overused my
worth
$30.
I know.
But that is the presentation.
On the town
So-
website, see that?
You didn't add that.
So to the, couple slides back, just after your big warning slide.
This one.
Yeah. The assessed value looks like we went up
We did.
$1.4 million or something.
Yep.
Can you speak to where that came from?
Properties are selling higher than what they were.
Okay.
It's the market.
So it's not new properties,
No.
it's change in
No,
valuation?
not a lot of new properties. It's mainly change in valuation. The market's rebounding. I know condos are seeing an uptick. Single-family homes, you're starting to see an uptick. But no, there wasn't a lot of new construction to be added.
Yeah.
The mills are not online. I know that's one of the questions we have. That's not online yet. That's still in the
You're
city.
anticipating my next question then.
Okay, that will be in about, I think it's.
5 years?
3 years. We already had 2 years. It is slowly coming online,
It's
but
a
it's
good,
not.
it's a good 3,
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah, it's 3.
And what's that number, once it's all realized?
You won't know
assuming
because you
current-
have
We
to
don't
go
know
what the
based on
value
current
is
rate
at
is.
that point, right.
And it may be useful on a history basis, because I'm assuming our valuation was much higher than 743 3 or 4 years ago, before,
Yes.
All the values changed.
No, it wasn't much higher.
but it
I think
was,
the highest we
at
had,
least higher, right?
we had, the highest I think we ever had was about 745.
Okay.
So it wasn't, we're not seeing huge,
So if condos dipped, other things are replacing that
Things
either
dip,
with
right.
new building or?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. Well, one thing that hits is that, yes, our assessments, that's one of the things where it's estimated. We don't know what assessments are going to be. We don't know what properties are going to be here, not be here.
Yep.
heaven forbid, construction freak accidents, whatever it is. But at $100,000 higher evaluation and the same tax rate, this goes to where we started at 607, our budget is actually higher, or the amount needed to be raised from
So taxation is
taxation
higher.
Is higher.
Yep.
is higher,
Because that's part of the revenue reduction.
right?
Yeah.
So keep your, we do need to watch that 607, but let's say, a big box store moved in and that increases the tax rate, the tax base. But if we're only looking at the tax rate, the budget could be way up
Way out
there.
of whack.
And here's my little
But
warning.
it's how, so we wanna
Yeah.
look at this as multi-pronged as we
But
can.
here's my warning with the 744.
Right.
That's at 106%. Actually, I'm sorry, 103%. When we do the statistical update next year,
It's supposed to be 95.
it's supposed to be between, we should be between the worst you can do is 85, on the low end, the worst on the other end is 120.
Well,
So
so
we're-
that's where I think we have to be careful on the
Oh, yeah.
expenditure side.
But
You're
I just
gonna-
wanted everybody,
Questions.
I just wanted everybody to realize
That's right.
that 744, by the time we set, when this goes into place for the budget, it'd probably be a different number.
Oh,
Because of the statistical update that's gonna happen. You're not gonna see the huge swings that you saw the last time you
Maybe
did
1 or
it.
2%
You'll
lower.
probably see a 1 or 2%,
Yeah, that was
if
my
not a
question,
little bit
what's the
further lower.
percentage?
So that 607 is really a moving target
Yep.
at this
That's why I
time.
always put that warning in there.
Yes,
It's kind of piggyback on Russ and Amy. I'm not a fan of buying down the tax rate.
Yep.
What would the tax rate have been before we brought it down?
631.
It would have been the same.
Well, no, it'd been,
it would have been 631.
It would have been
without
631,
that
yeah. Yes.
404, yes.
Yep.
And I think Steve knows my feelings
Yeah.
on that.
Speaking of things that can
Got it.
either hurt us or help us in the future.
Yep.
And you talked about water management being an issue. We have wastewater, we have new schools. Do you have a handle, because I don't think we've ever discussed it before, Cliff's point about the mills. I don't know what abatements have been given in the past that may be running out. I would assume there's more than just the mills has an abatement, or is that the
actually,
only?
no, there aren't many. 79E are only 2 properties in town. The Mills are the big one.
Yeah.
And the second one hasn't started yet is the blacksmith shop, the Joyce's Kitchen. And that hasn't been implemented yet, because they haven't started construction there.
So that would be one that would come off the tax
And
roll.
that's a 3-year deal. Yep. It comes off. No, it doesn't come off. It stays at its current value for 3 years. So after construction, the value is up, but not on the taxes. It stays at a level for 3 years, and after 3 years, the value, we get to start taxing it up full. It's an incentive, because a lot of people say, well, I don't want to put money into these old buildings because I'm going to have to start paying a lot more money than it is now. Well, let's just try to incentivize people to invest in old buildings.
Okay, so versus the purchase of the land for the school, which came off the tax rolls, you're saying these things
We'll go back on.
maintain
Yep.
their
The
old
current value.
value?
Yep.
The improvements are delayed by
Yep.
3-5 years or what? Yeah, if you could just sort of
Yep.
reaffirm that with
Yep.
us. I'd love to have things, Cliff, that were, $4 billion worth of property value is going to get added 3 years from now when this abatement runs out, but I'm not sure we have that in Newmarket.
4 billion with a B?
Yeah.
I was gonna say that
Yeah.
the U.S. government would like
You-
that.
you-
If you're going to dream big.
We could become, I think we would be the most valuable community in the state.
Did the Joyce's Kitchen get the 90?
79E?
79.
They did.
Yes,
They did get it.
For that building.
Yeah.
And please understand.
Just that building.
Just that building,
Okay,
not the new construction. You can't give it for new construction.
No, I know
only
you
rehab.
can't, yeah.
Right.
Alright, so, alright.
But, I mean, other than that, I mean, there's not, we don't have any large capital projects this coming year. Nothing like we did last year with the wastewater plant and the well. We understood, we try to keep those things off the radar for a little bit. We're just trying to keep the operations and funding the things that we can and doing things that, that we can.
Other than the budget, any sense of what you're gonna be putting out there for warrant articles?
There's discussion that in August, we were allowed to, they changed the laws for the towns. Schools and cities in the state were allowed to have contingency funds. They just started allowing towns to have it, but we need to get authorization from the voters to do so. So that may be one. The other one is, Our anniversary is coming, our 300th anniversary is coming up in 2027. It was discussed that we start a capital reserve fund and put $2,000 a year in it until such time, till the 2027. So that year, they'll have a fund to go to have fireworks and a celebration for the 300th anniversary of the town. And just to start putting the money aside, it would be $2,000 a year for the next 14 years. So
Okay.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
that way you can offset it. The only other one.
If we don't make it that long.
What? I
You
will
have
be-
plans?
You have to apply in person.
Yeah.
I just want to back up a second.
Yeah.
I'm on the water and sewer, so I
Yes.
didn't realize that we were selling the property, or the facility itself. It was part of the sale. I saw.
DPW, no.
Oh, that's
that's not
DPW.
water and
I'm
sewer.
sorry.
No.
I'm sorry. Okay.
We're not selling any water. We're developing a well. So that's a,
Do we have any more property that we might be able to sell?
we're gonna, there's a subcommittee of the town council that's been formed. We're gonna be reviewing all of our properties
All right.
and see what we can and cannot sell. You know, I always say, we're not in the business of owning land, we're in the business of taxing land.
Well, and I think that's important for us to know,
Yeah.
you know, going forward as far as, you know, again, continually funded general fund and those
Absolutely.
sorts
Four
of things.
sources
That's
of
that's
revenue.
another note,
Yeah.
right.
Hate to see
Okay.
what we're getting for it versus what we spent on it. I'm sure that's not a thrilling number.
Okay.
Especially if you burn houses down that were on it.
No problem.
Has everybody got a list of list of whatever tonight? Okay.
I will,
We have our paperwork, our background stuff to read, to go through.
and I'll come up with a schedule for the departments to come in starting the 9th with the vice chair.
Okay, and that would lead to my next question, one of which ties into what Mr. Glennon was asking, but just for confirmation, we know we're going to see you on December 9th,
The 16th.
on the 16th.
Yep.
We will have an overview with the school next week, and then we will start getting into the details with them first. So you've got till December 9th. We have 2 weeks to go through this
Yeah.
ostensibly. Now, what I need to know as far as scheduling your department heads, yes, they should at least come in December 9th. When, if we have the 9th and the 16th, when are warrants reviewed for the budget? Drew, do you-
January 11th is the
Those are
deadline.
not till January,
Right.
so we're on the main body of the budget for both those meetings.
Did you receive the schedule, the timeline,
Yes.
when our public hearing has to be?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
just when I'm going during the day, I just,
Yep, no, I just want to make sure you received it.
so as far as who's available when between the 9th and the 16th, we'll see X department heads this date and X the next
16th.
And
date.
I try not to put all the big ones on one night.
No, that's right.
Then
Okay,
Yeah.
and we can review that obviously with
Yep.
Chairman Snyder going forth. Okay.
Just a question, and I think this is great, and I appreciate the presentation. It seems to be at least more time than I felt we had last year, but it was my first year on the committee that we're 2 or 3 weeks of getting the
I think
budget
we're
before.
trying hard
that's great.
to get,
Yep.
we did have the full year so that everybody can kind of get familiar with what these are, things, you know, nothing is ever perfect in anybody's business or anything like that, but we are getting more information sooner, and I think that's important. A lot of us are really busy, but we need to be able to do our homework before we show up at the meeting so that we're not all wonky and sideways, and I do think that past years were like this, so if this is feeling better, Russ,
Well,
I'm pleased.
The other thing, though, is do you want questions from us? I mean, there are going to people who
probably
look at this,
doesn't.
there are people who are going to ignore it for a while. Would you like to get
It would help to come through the committee as a whole, so I'm not answering the same question
before
12
December
times.
9th?
And you also got to be careful in 91A
If there,
Gotta
if,
be careful what?
of the right to know law.
Right to know.
What you can and cannot ask, you know, because if you're asking me a question, it can't be out, you got to make sure that it's recorded somewhere, and you shouldn't be sending it to a majority of the board, and then comes to me. You're violating the right to know law. It has to be in public if it's not a
can
personal
I
question.
ask if anybody's got any questions that really, you know, Steve needs to prepare a bit of document, or any questions at all? If you're not sure, you could always email the chairman, and if you'd copy me on it, just because I will be chairing a number of the upcoming meetings. Email both of us we can get the questions to Steve, so that you aren't running
Right.
last minute on some of those big prepared things.
And I don't mean to try to sound like I don't want to answer, I just want to make sure we don't run
Oh,
afoul
no,
of
you
that
will,
either.
no.
Yeah.
Is it appropriate for someone who has a question, as you're stating, to send a question to the chair, the vice chair, and on to Mr. Fournier? However, would it be appropriate to do it to the entire budget committee? Because it might be a
No.
question that everybody else has.
You can't.
Because anything more
No.
than three,
Okay.
If I send an email to a majority of the commission, you should be doing that in public. You should be presenting the information.
I mean, but we're not gonna discuss it there,
Right.
but
Well, that's my whole point. We wouldn't discuss
certainly-
it there, but.
From a process point of view.
Yep.
If we said we're having a meeting next Monday, where we're gonna get a preliminary review from the school.
Yes.
Scheduling is exempt from that.
Steve is so speedy, where it's 8 o'clock, we can maybe leave, but if we
So once you have the agenda for next week, which
can we
the
put
chairman
on
will send
something,
out.
yeah, I'm just saying, if people wanna think this week as a result of Steve, have
That's
questions
fine. And if you
that we
forward them to
could
me after,
bring
that's
in
fine.
for the
Yes.
next meeting, so we can put them sort of all together.
Now, the chairman's away for a couple of days, so for right now, certainly email both of us. If we might already have an answer, in which case I would copy Steve, and I would say, look, yes, we've already requested that from Dr. Hayes, or we've already, I might be able to do something like that.
Well,
But
I'd
in
like
this
the chair to
situation-
consolidate the questions at some
Yeah,
point.
oh, no,
So
absolutely.
whether you send them this week or you have them ready by next Monday,
Yeah.
if you want to see information differently, or if you have a question you don't think was answered, let's get them to Steve a couple weeks in advance.
My thought is that next week will go very similarly to this week. It is an overview, so then going forward again, because we're addressing the town tonight. If any questions come up with this, or things that in specific that you don't already have here, once you get through all of this, certainly let us know, and we'll work to get that from Steve at a timely.
And that way
manner.
too, if there's some departments that are just, they're real small, you don't need a department head coming in. We can save a lot of time by just going through them and say, look, and 9 times out of 10, I can answer the question. But I think that's something that would help with some of if you bring up questions beforehand.
And overall, the budget is pretty much flat from last year, so they're.
No,
well,
it isn't.
I'm not gonna say totally flat, but
You guys,
it's
that's
well
I'm not
done.
gonna-
Let me put it not, it's well done. It's well done.
Not. But I think the thing's out there, so if that makes sense to everybody, and again, bear with
just
us a
have
little
a
bit,
comment
since
on
the
that.
chairman and I are obviously in a little bit of a flux here. She will be back for the
Yeah,
next.
and maybe that's
for the
something we can
next
do
meeting.
for 10 minutes next week,
Yeah.
is just decide which departments we really don't need to see, so we can give Steve that answer.
It'll just save you guys more time too.
Yeah, it's gonna save your people time.
Why
There's
don't,
probably only a handful or two, other than what you're gonna tell us that we need to,
does anybody
unless
think
you
they have
feel it's
any big
important to get your department heads up and
It's,
flogged.
preference? Do you guys want to talk about that tonight? Steve, do you want to email to the chairman and
I think that's probably the best. Is I'll say, look, here's my recommendation.
I can certainly,
better.
or send it to, or we will send it out to the rest of the committee unless
What's that?
somebody,
I've seen it long enough
who's
that,
coming what night or
Well,
whatever, I
why
don't know
wouldn't
how
we
it.
just follow the format in the budget book?
well, because there's certain, I'm not gonna, I
Some of
wouldn't
them are
recommend
heavy
having,
hitters and we don't want
even
them all
though
on
the
one
members
night.
here, I wouldn't have the entire Conservation Commission come in to discuss their budget, because it just isn't a big, huge budget. Cemetery trustees,
They're going up,
we can answer those
they're going up
without having all the
$1,500
trustees
over
come
actual,
in. So those are kind of things I would put down there,
Okay,
so.
that makes sense. I just have a
I would
comment.
agree.
Yeah.
If you can make a recommendation, that would be,
Okay,
Yeah.
all right,
That'll
and
make sense,
Mr.
yeah.
Glennon?
we should eliminate about half the
Russ?
departments.
I just have two things. One is not related to the budget, but I know we're gonna be closing. I like the format. The only problem I have is some of the print is very, very small, and I see a lot of space down at the bottom.
It doesn't have anything to do with the going this way, it has to do with, the
Going
more
the other
information
way.
you ask, it doesn't go up and down,
Yeah.
it goes left and right.
All right.
So, I try to get as
Get
much
some of those
information I can.
magnifying boards.
Yeah.
Something, because I'm like with a
That's it.
magnifying glass looking at
I
this
understand,
stuff, you know?
and trust me, when I print them up, I try to get it as big as I can.
Okay, and my only other comment, which is not related to the budget, I want to compliment you on the very well done painting and refurbishing of this town hall. It looks very professional.
Thank you. And that was money we already had budgeted in the capital reserve, so.
Right.
Okay, so you are all set for the 9th and the 16th?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you.
All right, so let's, I was going to say, make a wise remark, but.
Yeah. Sorry, I just need to catch up here for a second. Okay. All right, so the next meeting date is...
Next Monday.
I got it. Next Monday, the 28th, we will do, the 25th, we will be meeting with the school board for their agenda. Would you put your hand up my back? Is that what you want to, okay. That is at 7 o'clock. Any other business for this evening? Yes, sir.
Speaking of the school, I just wanted to, if folks don't know, what's the progress with the tuition agreement with Oyster River.
Or the lack of it
Or
there.
the lack of. I'm personally kind of frustrated with the pace of progress with it. The committee of Oyster River reps and Newmarket reps is scheduled to meet, but not until December the 3rd. And the anticipated date that we've been given from the Oyster River School Board is that they will make their decision on whom they choose to dance with on December the 18th, which is awfully late. You know, it's coming up very close to the time we have to have our warrant finalized, so I worry that we don't have enough time to process that adequately, but we'll do our best.
And we don't have a sense of what the delay is.
We do that, if the school website is certainly a source for some of that. I think it sounds like it's in negotiations, and
Yeah, but-
as you phrased it, the dance partner, I think we have to keep looking fresh and keep our outfit nice, and we can do the best we can, and you know, hopefully things will work out in a positive manner for all concerned, and there are ways to get things done, even at the last minute.
Mhm.
But it is very frustrating, certainly. But there's a lot of hoops, and there's a lot of details and devils in them. It sounds like, and
But
you
it
know, I hope
doesn't-
that everything at least is moving forward in good faith. And yes, it's late, but we'll do what we have to do if that offer comes through.
We're doing everything we can on this side of the border to push the schedule as fast as we can.
So it's the 18th that we'll have a definite or a?
No, it could change again.
Oh, okay.
Right, I mean, the date has been a moving target, but,
Right.
boy, if it doesn't happen on the 18th, we're running out of year. So that's a Wednesday. There's a school board meeting the following night, so,
Hopefully forewarned is forearmed, and if that happens,
But again, it doesn't go to my question. I know, I'm not trying to say you're sugarcoating it, but the real question that I have, and I met with Dr. Hayes today myself, is what is causing these delays? Do you guys as a school board have a sense to why they keep on changing these dates?
well, you could, look at the business that the Oyster River School District is involved with. They're doing or considering redistricting their elementary schools, and that, I think, has been a big time sink for them.
So-
Beyond that, it's hard to know.
And I was told that by Dr. Hayes today, and I asked him the question, can they not do two things at once? And he laughed and said, you know what, that was the question I asked. Can you not do two things at once? So we still don't have, and I know you're frustrated, because a lot of other people are frustrated with this whole thing. And again, we just can't seem to find a reason to why they keep on changing the date. Is that accurate?
You know, I can only speak to what I know, and it's that it's painstakingly slow. We've been trying to push for meeting dates on the sooner side, and
Yeah, I got
it
the,
hasn't lined up.
I think initially we did hear, you know, when we were discussing all of this back almost a year ago, the original target date was sometime in December. It's interesting that it's, and then everybody worked hard to try to move it up, and now it seems to be that perhaps the initial December target, December date discussed is ending up what's happening, and we had moved it back, I think, in voting or deliberative session or something like that, thinking exactly what you said, that it wasn't going to give us a whole heck of a lot
And
of
that's
time.
fine. I have no problem with that. But again, I would like
Yeah.
a reason to why, as a
We could
citizen.
second guess them forever.
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing,
Go ahead,
that
Dave.
and I've seen the meetings from ours, I've also watched theirs, is it's not an emergency for them. We're in a crisis situation. They were just trying to feel it out to see, what they could do, and if this was a logical thing for them. We're really looking at this as a fix. So, like I always tell my guys at work, is you have a timetable you want it done, and they have a timetable they're going to get it done, and sometimes they just don't line up. And I think that's what's happening. We need it to happen sooner than they need it to really happen. And I think that's where we're feeling the pressure is, even like Cliff said, we want this done by the end of the year. I don't know if they're in that rush.
From watching
Okay.
some of their meetings, their redistricting of their elementary school is an extremely
it's a
hot
hot
topic
mess.
in their town.
Oh, yeah.
Extremely
Oh,
hot.
yeah.
Meaning,
And that didn't happen overnight.
they weren't allowing teachers to speak at the meeting who live in town.
Okay. Is there
Wow.
any other business, Mr.
I
Pickering?
was going to make a suggestion that we adjourn. Motion to adjourn.
We are,
I'll
we
second
can,
that.
we can now be at that line item. Thank you, Mr. Pickering, seconded by Mr. Kefeber. All in favor?
Aye.